Welcome, Coker Athletic fans, to another exciting episode of the Cobra Corner. My name is Will Hable, and I'll be your host today. I'm alongside JT Colapetro and David Mack. We've got a great show for you today as we sit down with Michael Antoniewicz, head coach of men's soccer, and the head coach of Coker Acrobatics and Tumbling, Brianna D'Angelo. We'll talk about the ins and outs of their programs and the background of these two outstanding head coaches. Sit back as we unpack the latest and greatest updates from Coker University Athletics.
All right, let's dive right in with our weekly roundup, highlighting the key results and performances across various sports at Coker this past week. Out on the course, men's golf tied for 7th at the Tennessee River Rumble, while men's and women's tennis competed at Byerly Park this weekend on Saturday, with the men beating UVA Wise 5-2 and the women beating UVA Wise 6-1. Back inside with Acro.
Yeah, Acro got the win on senior night with a final score of 252.765 to Emmanuel's 236.485. The Pyramid scored a total of 27.6 points out of 29.3. Toss scored a total of 25.6 points. Tumbling stood strong with 50.025 points, and the team event scored a total of 84.94 points. Now moving to lacrosse. Lacrosse took a trip up Tennessee Mountains this weekend to face SAC opponent Tusculum, getting the best of them with getting the win with 13-10 your final score. Zaire Marshall with another impressive performance, leading the team in scoring with 5 goals. Elijah Utz tallied a hat trick on the day, while Ethan Hofert stood tall in cage with 16 saves, breaking the Coker career save record previously held by Chris Haggy. The Cobras will be on a bye week this week as they look to end regular season play against Wingate and Lenore Rhine. Now to the diamond with baseball.
Yeah, to the diamond with baseball. Baseball went ahead, took 2 of 3 against Limestone this past weekend. Key performers were Gabriel Santiago, went 7 for 12 on the weekend. 583 average for him, 2 RBIs. As he goes ahead, he bumps his average up to 483. Has been a real spark for the Cobras off the bench and ever since his return, for that matter. And then Cody Hanna also having a big weekend, 5 for 9, hitting his first home run of the season in this past weekend. 4 RBIs for him. And then Ben Blackwell, again, the standout freshman, in 2 appearances for him this weekend. No earned runs allowed, no runs for that matter. Just 1 hit, 1 walk, and a strikeout for Blackwell. Then heading out over to the track, Mariah Mitchum taking 5th place in the 200-meter dash for Coker. And then Jade Roberts taking 6th in the long jump.
All right, in this week's Coach's Corner segment, we have a special guest today, head coach Brianna D'Angelo of Coker Acrobatics and Tumbling. Coach, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so just as a baseline for this, we kind of want you to just introduce yourself, give a little bit of a background about you and acrobatics and tumbling, how you got into it, what you did leading up to this, and then how you got here.
Yeah. So my background is in artistic gymnastics. I was a level 10 gymnast. The plan was to do college gymnastics, and I was actually already verbally committed to the University of Bridgeport for college gymnastics. And then I got an email from the coach at Glenville State. That's where I attended undergrad at the time, and kind of telling me the opportunity and what it provided. And at first, I was extremely skeptical. I was like, "What is this? Is this a scam?" I was super skeptical, and then my mom actually was the one that was like, you need to at least have a phone call and hear it out. And I had Googled it. At that point, it was still super new. Glenville was only the 12th school in the nation to add. So there wasn't much online. There was just a little bit, and it looked like kind of like at that point a little bit more similar to cheer. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I've been training my whole life to be a gymnast, and that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up, my parents actually forced me to go on a visit. I met with the coach, Amber King, who is a good friend of mine now. And she kind of sold it to me, and just her personality and just the opportunity to do something new kind of intrigued me once I got to the school and got to go on a visit and everything. And then And then I was like, all right, if I don't like it after a year, I can go back home. And then we started, and it was kind of cool because it was the inaugural team. So everyone came in not knowing really what we were doing. So we started learning together. And yeah, I mean, we had a pretty first successful season, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then after I graduated, after 4 years, I was, Katie Nunley from Frostburg State hired me as her grad assistant. And then I helped start the program at Frostburg. And after that, I came here.
So I guess building off that, how did your experiences with starting a program at Frostburg State kind of help you as you became the head coach here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten a lot of different experiences at Glenville. I was on a first-year program as an athlete. I've also had 4 coaches in 4 years. There was a lot of turnover at Glenville, but, I mean, I still had a great experience. And then I learned a lot from Katie. She helped with as far as like recruiting goes, and we were kind of starting it together. But I had no idea really about how to recruit and all that. So I learned a lot from her at that aspect. And then I just kind of took both of those and implemented it here. I mean, I didn't start the program here. Brittany Durham, she was the coach that originally started the program. So I kind of built off her foundation and then went from there. So
do you think it was easier, I guess, as an athlete coming in as the program was starting at Glenville State, and then as a GA as it started at Frostburg State, did you find it easier helping build it from the ground up, or did you find it easier with a little bit of a foundation here at Coker?
Like at Frostburg, what do you mean?
Okay. The difference being, okay, so you were a first year athlete at Glenville State, first year
assistant
at Frostburg State. So what's the difference in starting a program from the ground up as in kind of inheriting a little bit of it here?
Yeah, it was totally different because at Frostburg we got to kind of pick our athletes coming in, and I mean, I love the girls here and the athletes that I've coached, but it was, I didn't really know what I was coming into. I didn't know what talent was here. And so it was definitely different. I had to, and I think one way I could relate with them is, again, I had 4 coaches in 4 years, so I knew what it was like having a new coach. So I tried to relate with them in that aspect. It was definitely different for them, and it was different for me. But I kind of told them, like, hey, we're in this together, and I need you guys to trust me. And it took a little bit of time. That first year, I felt like a chicken with my head cut off because, it is so different from an assistant coach to running a program. And then you have to learn everything about the school. And, I was at Frostburg for 2 years, so I knew everything, not everything, but I knew so much about that school. And then coming in, I had to learn how scholarships worked. I had to learn just everything. So it was overwhelming. I didn't have an assistant that first year. So, but I think, we managed through, and I couldn't have asked for a better first season as a head coach. So
yeah, and obviously coming into the program and everything like that, obviously your first year you were 5-2 coming into it. That was your first year, and then this year only having the 1 loss to Limestone so far this year. And it's been relatively one of the more successful newer programs in the country, for that matter. So what is it like kind of just having that type of success, not only coming in, but knowing that, this has been a successful program from the start?
Yeah, it's been honestly more than I could ask for. I mean, we didn't have any. So my first year was, 2020, 2021. We didn't really have any expectations that year. We were like, all right, let's see how we compete. I mean, again, I had no idea. They had never competed before. So it was like learning how they do under pressure, kind of seeing, how they do in front of judges, all of that. So we didn't really have any major expectations. And then we got better throughout the season, and we qualified to nationals in that pyramid. The next year, a little bit more expectations, but again, it was still that building and that foundation. And then we ended up 5-2 that year. And then I feel like every year the expectations get a little higher, and they kind of match up to it. So it's like, okay, we're growing. So the expectations grow and they kind of exceed. So
For sure. So I guess when bringing in athletes, because obviously something very important in the collegiate world is the art of recruiting your athletes. You kind of get to go in and pick out athletes that you want. Now, obviously, you have to do your best to go and get them. So what's kind of your been your main recruiting philosophy when looking for athletes?
yeah. I feel like for me, it's easy to recruit gymnasts because I was a gymnast and a lot of them are still like, now it's easier because Acro is becoming it's growing. So a lot of people know of it. There's camps and clinics. There's now youth acrobatics and tumbling gyms and clubs that help with recruiting too. And there's showcases. Like we didn't have that when I was getting recruited. So it's a lot easier now. But as far as like the gymnasts go, it's pretty, 'cause I can relate to them. And Alyssa Liu, my assistant, she was an all-star cheerleader and she's really good with the cheer. I mean, I can recruit cheerleaders too, but it's nice having that background of both. She was a base, I was a flyer or top. I was a gymnast, she was a cheerleader, so kind of have that balance. But just explaining the opportunity, like you're going to be treated as a college athlete. You're going to have the opportunity to compete. Whereas, it's hard to get a scholarship in gymnastics. It was hard when I was getting, recruited. So it's just another opportunity for them to showcase the skills that they've been working on their whole life and just to use it in a different way. And for me, it's like, it's a new challenge. Gymnastics sometimes, like, at least for me, I plateaued. I wasn't probably going to get much better than where I was at. Whereas in Acro, you could go from absolutely knowing nothing about the sport for 4 years and then 4 years later being like an All-American or winning a national title. And it's like, you've only been doing this for 4 years. So, you have to learn everything coming in fresh. You don't get recruited knowing how to do acrobatics and tumbling. And I think that's the hardest part, but we try to present it as, it's exciting and it's new.
So I guess as a coach that brings in those athletes that sometimes, and as you said, the sport is growing, so there's going to be more athletes that do know the sport coming in. But how is it? How do you deal with that as the head coach with those athletes coming in and not really knowing the sport their first year in?
I mean, if we see that you look strong and you have a willingness to learn, you're gonna be fine. I mean, and everyone, it clicks, for different people at any time. So like some people could come in and get it immediately. Some people it'll take longer, but we do a lot of like, we don't come in and like you're expected to like lift 200 pounds. Everything is foundational. So same with, on the mat, we come in and we do just basic hand grips and counterbalance drills. A lot of acros, counterbalance and core work and just very basic drills so they get comfortable because it is a hard sport. You have to be strong. You have to know how to have air awareness. So we do a lot of groundwork in preseason to get them comfortable, building the big tricks. So
For sure.
Yeah, so we talked with Caitlin. We had Caitlin on the show a month ago or so ago, but we talked with her about how they mesh as a team between coming from cheerleading and gymnastics. So I just wanted to get your take on it as a coach because you're the one in charge of meshing all of that. How do you manage it?
I feel like it's not really like an issue as far as like some of my cheer athletes are like best friends with some of the gymnasts. So I mean, it's definitely like, it's more of like a stigma, I feel like.
Yeah.
I definitely know like as a gymnast, it's like, oh, I don't want to be a cheerleader, but it's nothing against cheerleaders. I think, you need both to be to do this sport.
Yeah.
You need some that have that stunting background, and then you need some that have the gymnastics technique and I think they understand that coming in. We try to be transparent about that, Yeah. Some of the gymnasts, it's an individual sport. So some do take a little bit of time getting used to the team aspect, like I did. I know I definitely did. But we try to do a lot of, team bonding activities and try to make them understand that it's, it's not about you, it's about the team.
Yeah, so. Especially having your assistant coach also being a cheerleader also probably helps them too. So have two sides two sides of the fight help mesh everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just talk a little bit about you mentioned earlier going to nationals back in 2022. I believe it was in Eugene at the University of Oregon. So just talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So at the time, the at-large qualifying was a little different. So now they take the average of each heat. Back then, it was like if you scored a 10, you automatically get in, basically.
Okay.
So it was our last meet of the season, and we obviously had we didn't have any expectations. Like I said, we had just gotten back from. No, this was regular season. So I don't remember who we were competing against, but we had started that pyramid with going in. Madison McAfee was the mid-level. Hannah Helms was the top. And we were just like at practice trying it one time. We're like, all right, this looks good. Let's try competing it. And then we had scored a couple like 9.8s, 9.9s. And then that very last meet, we scored a 10. And that was a surreal moment. Like that was the first 10 I've never scored a 10 as an athlete. So as a coach, it was really cool to like experience that with them. And then I was like, I think this means we get to go to nationals, but we weren't like 100% sure. So again, like we weren't expecting that. So then we got word that, we qualified and we got to travel as a team. That was such a fun experience, something I'll always remember. And then we got to compete against, Baylor, Oregon, all these huge, top ranked teams.
Yeah. I'm sure that was such a surreal experience because reading, so, this past Thursday was the senior night and going through the script that I was reading, it was like, I think 75-80% of those athletes all said that like their favorite experience from competing was going to Oregon and having that experience there. So I'm sure that as both an athlete and a coach, that was so surreal and awesome to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole trip and going on a plane, flying across the country, like I don't know, it was fun. It was stressful, but it was fun.
You feel official after that.
It was just some of the girls have never even flown on a plane, so it was super special and getting to all experience that together, and especially as first year competing, it was just so cool.
I remember them coming back and they were like in awe, like that was so cool, like they were so excited to go, and it was to me like. They were just happy just to like qualify in general. So it was just a huge milestone for them.
And I think that really got set up just a few, we didn't take the whole team, but having just a core of them getting to see, one compete at a stage like that was incredible. And then getting to see, what our sport can looks like at that level.
Yeah. They were like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I think that motivated them the next year too. So yeah.
Kaylin touched on that too about how like she saw Baylor, Oregon, and they're like, wow, like this is what we can be this. Yeah. We just got to work at it. So
for sure, And I feel like they're getting there. So
they definitely are. Yeah,
and that's awesome to see with it being in preseason this year, top 15. You were ranked number 12, so it's you're inching closer and closer and closer to, because I know they take the top 8 teams, correct? And then do they do top 8 from each individual event, or how does that?
So if you qualify, yes, they'll take the top 8, and then at nationals they'll take if you make the top 8, how do they do it? They will, like the people that qualified in top 8, the meets that they're competing at, like the semifinals and all that, they'll take the top score for them. But then at large, it's all, now they changed it, it's all average.
Okay.
So they take the average of each heat. So
how many at large teams do they allow in?
Just one per. Well, I mean, it's really hard to tie now. Back then it was easy to tie, but now it's really hard. So they'll take just one. Yeah.
Wow. So they take whatever
of each heat.
Yeah. So whatever the highest.
Yep. Average.
I'm assuming besides the 8 teams that already. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That is.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to make it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I take it with the what a lot of people don't realize is that with this sport being obviously the way it is and everything like that, you're not just facing just Division II schools. You're facing Division I schools as well. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think it's like 56 teams, 60 some odd teams in total. What is it like kind of just facing like all levels? Because again, it's D1,
Yeah.
D2, D3, and I believe just one NAIA school.
I think it's, like I said, like, it's cool having that opportunity to get to compete at, with different, some that are veteran programs, like Quinnipiac and Baylor, Oregon, Azusa. Like, that's, I know a couple teams in our conference got to compete at Azusa this year, and just having that experience, seeing what it's like to compete against, veteran programs. And I think it's inspiring for them too, because it's like, oh wow, like this is what we can be. So I know, like, as an athlete, I got to compete against Baylor my sophomore year. Baylor came to Glenville, and that was just, I mean, we knew we were gonna lose, so it was like nothing like, but it was just the experience of, wow, like watching their team routine in person, like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And honestly, I feel like it helped us do better too, because we're like, oh, we need to compete up to them. And I think anytime that, I know, at least for my team and us, if we're competing against, a good program, even if we say don't really have a shot of winning, we always do better, like play up to them.
So how has it been? You said when you were being recruited out of high school that Glenville was one of the first 12 teams you said to have a program. So how has it been seeing it grow from that to what it is today, and then the continuing growth, because it's still such a new sport and still getting bigger and bigger? I mean,
it's incredible. Like it's crazy. I mean, I've been out of college for like 5 years now, so just within the 5 years, like, we've grown a number of there's been a number of programs that have added. So it's exciting because it's just a growing sport, and I'm excited. We're emerging NCAA sport now, and we're trying to get to that NCAA status, which, it's crazy. I tell the team, like, you don't realize how much you're making history, when you're in it. And then when you are out of it now, it's like, wow, like we're all pioneers of the sport, and we've all had a hand in it and getting to where it is today. And it's like I said, it's hard to realize when you're in it. And it's also cool to see just a lot of coaches or athletes that I graduated with, or that were the same year as me. Now we're all friends and we're all coaching. So, which is awesome to see as well.
Yeah, that's awesome to see a lot of those a lot of those athletes that initially got into the sport, seeing them take their experiences and grow on that, become coaches, and then share that love of this brand new sport at the next level.
For sure. And I think it's like, of course we're competitive, but we all want the same thing. We all want to see the sport, keep growing and become NCAA. And so we kind of have to wear our NCATA caps. And, we're all helpful with you. Like, I have friends that are different other coaches, and I'll call them up, they'll call me up, like we'll talk, we'll help each other out. That's how I got through my first year a lot, so it's just nice having that community as well, just to lean on whenever you need help or times are tough.
For sure. And I love to see what being at all of the meets this year. I got the pleasure of being at every single one of the home ones, and seeing not just the coaches, but the athletes supporting each other, not just on the sideline for their own team, but for a different school. So like a newer program like Francis Marion, when they were competing, I think it was you guys in Belmont Abbey were also there. So seeing both of the other teams for them when they were on the mat, and as they're growing, just supporting them and in their growth, it has been so cool to be able to see from an outside perspective, because you don't really see that very often in other sports where athletes are lifting it up like that. And so sure. I think that not just the coaches, but the athletes are also bought into helping the sport grow.
Yeah. And I think like it's hard. Acro's hard. And so going out there and like not, I remember our first year too, we had a lot of support, and it's hard going out there, and it's nerve wracking, especially if you've never done it. So, the more encouraging other teams can be, I think it helps, those newer programs, and it's hard to put together.
For sure.
Just wanted to segue into the conference tournament. You got coming with a 2 seed. How are you guys getting ready to face Limestone again?
Yeah, I mean, so we don't know exactly. We have semifinals and then and then quarterfinals. So I don't know exactly who we'll be competing against, but we've gotten to this season. We've set up our strategy a little bit different, and the way our conference schedule was a little different. So last year, all of our, I feel like the schedule was flip flop. So we had all of our more neck and neck meets. They were in the beginning of season this year. So it's been nice because we got through that, and so we got to kind of experiment a little bit with the other meets. So it's just to see what things score and what we can compete, what we're not going to compete at conference. So so that's been nice, just getting to kind of see that, and we're just going to keep just a lot of reps and working on the details now. So and kind of finalizing what we're going to go into semifinals with. So.
Yeah, and so I guess segueing off the mat a little bit, we've talked a lot about the competition portion of it. So part of it here at Coker, in the fall, the school was number 1 in Division II for community service hours. So I guess just I wanted you to touch on a little bit of maybe what your favorite thing as a coach has been, that maybe you've seen your team really buy into or whatever that you guys have done as part of that community service.
Let's see. So my team really likes the treats on the streets. Is that what it's called? It was for Halloween.
Okay.
And the community all downtown, they all go out and hand out candy to kids. They all like that. And then I know we've volunteered at the animal shelter, which that was fun. Just getting to play with the dogs.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure they all loved that. For sure.
Yeah. So we've done little things like that, but that's what they've enjoyed. So.
And then I guess also off the mat, part of being a student athlete is that there's a reason that the student is first. So how do you, I guess as a head coach, not only do you have to worry about the competition portion of it, but you have to worry about managing your entire roster of athletes and their grades off the mat. So how does that come into? What are some things you guys do to make sure that those athletes are on track in the classroom?
Yeah. So my assistant she kind of manages all of that. She kind of runs the study hall and everything, but we do study hall. So all of our freshmen is required for the year. So I think we do 4 hours a week. We'll do it in first semester. We would have someone supervise. This semester we unless their grades are very bad, they'll come into our office. But for first semester, it would be supervised. This semester, they just will have a sign-in sheet at the library, and they'll have to sign in their hours. We kind of give them a little bit more leeway this semester because our grades last semester were much better. But if you anyone that drops below a 3.0 has to do study hall. So even if you're a junior, senior, sophomore, any of that, you have to maintain a 3.0.
Gotcha.
So
that standard is you set that pretty, which is good for sure. So I guess one of my last questions would be, as yourself as a little bit of a younger head coach, do you find an issue dealing with your athletes being so young? Do they take to that well? What's the relationship like there?
Yeah, I feel like it was more, I wouldn't say of an issue, but it was definitely harder when I first got here. It was hard for me too because like I said, I came from an assistant and then having to jump into that role of a head coach was hard for me to do because I had never, done that. And I, as an assistant, you're I don't want to say the good guy, but it's totally different. So having to step in, and my personality, I'm just I'm, easygoing. That's just my personality. So it was definitely hard for me at first to kind of step into that. Okay, no, I'm the head coach. I have authority, and it was hard. But then I think year 2, and now I definitely have grown a lot and feel more confident. And
for sure.
And I think I always say too, if you you don't have to be here if you don't want to, you know? So if you don't like the way we do things or like my coaching style or any of that, like you don't have to be here. So
for sure.
But
for
yeah,
sure.
we just, I think, and Alyssa and I were so different too, so it helps. But
I guess on the flip side of things, do you use being a little bit younger as more of a tool to relate closer to your athletes?
I think that's been the biggest thing. I think as far as recruiting goes and just the team, you know, like it's only been 5 years since I've touched the mat, so I'm not that far out of it. But so you know, we when they're hurting or when, you know, we're going through, you know, just the midst of season, it's like, guys, like we understand, you know, we've been there, we've gone through all of it. You know, I've gone through the ups and downs of the sport. So has Coach Lou. She's had coaches and multiple coaches and all of that. So it's like, you know, we know what you're going through, and it'll be okay. But I think that helps for sure.
Yeah, being an athlete myself, we have Coach Ambrose is fairly younger coach, and I feel like having him not too far out of the game really helps when you're going through something or like the game changes. So I'm like Acro the same way. It's changing so much. So having someone that actually went through it not too long ago kind of helps out with all of that.
I think it does. Yeah, it's nice having, especially like two coaches that have gone through it, you know. And it's like I said, with our background, Coach Lou and I, our backgrounds are so different. So, you know, if it's something like a base or a top, like we can both relate to them because we've done it. So.
Yeah, well, that's just about all we have.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and good luck with the conference tournament.
Thank you so much.
All right, in this week's Coach's Corner segment, we have a special guest, head coach Michael Antoniewicz of Coker Men's Soccer. Coach, thanks for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me.
All right, so just as a little bit of a baseline, just kind of give us a background of your upbringing in soccer, how you got into it, maybe a little bit of your playing, where you went, and then how you got into coaching and how you got here to Coker.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Scotland, and I came out to the US in 2012. Went to an NAIA school called Truett McConnell University, and had a great experience there. We were a decent program, weren't super successful, but we were able to be competitive every year. But in my senior year, we had a new head coach called Rob Miller, who's now currently the head coach at Converse University.
Okay.
He was very successful at his time in Anderson University back in 2006, 2010, around that time. They were very successful. And he came in and he kind of changed the program around, started getting national recognition, competing for championships, did really well. At the end of my senior year, I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. No idea at all. Unfortunately, a door opened where our assistant coach left at the end of the fall semester of my senior year. I was the captain of the team and had a really good relationship with the head coach. And he said to me, "Hey, what do you want to do after college?" I was like, "I have no idea." He said, "Well, would you be interested in helping me out in the spring? And seeing if it would be something that you'd like." So spring came around right after Christmas and helped him for 2 weeks, and I fell in love with it. I loved it. Got to get involved in all aspects of the program, from the recruiting, training, all that kind of stuff, while I was still finishing up my degree to graduate in that May. So I was assistant there for 3 years, had a fantastic experience. We were able to win a couple conference championships, go to national tournament, get a lot of national recognition, and kind of turn the program around. So I was definitely a more successful coach as I was as a player, for sure. And then 2019 started to feel okay, and maybe I'm ready to be a head coach. Started to kind of throw my name in the hat for a few positions, and the Coker job came up. My wife was sold when she realized how close we were to the beach, so we put my name in for it, and went through the interview process. And Dr. Griffin put her trust in me and was able to offer me that position, and accepted it right away. And here we are now, 5 years later, and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this past season, I think you guys peaked at number 11 in the country in Division II. So how has it been taking over the program, building it up, and kind of bringing your own athletes in, your coaching staff, and getting everybody bought in to the point where you can get that level of national recognition?
Yeah, it took us a couple of years. My first couple of years, we got a few nationally ranked mentions, things like that here and there in my first couple of years, but it took us about 2021 was when I had a full crop of players, where it was players that myself and my staff brought in, where we had a full buy-in from top to bottom, and it kind of kicked on from there. We were able to win the conference championship, the tournament in 2021, and got to national tournament, and that's kind of the platform. That's our expectations now, is what we want as a program. Having winning records is something that is a non-negotiable now. Competing in every game, knowing that we're going in to try and win the game, and we're not scared of anyone. We're not intimidated by who we're against, because we want to be amongst the best Division 2 programs in the country, and that's where I think we're at now. I think we're a very good Division 2 program, but I want us to be elite. And that's something that I'm pushing our guys every single day, something myself, my staff are pushing them every single day to try and do, and that's what we're trying to sell to our recruits that we're bringing in. If you want to be a part of a program that wants to not just compete on the regional level but on the national level, this is the program for you, because this is what we want to do. We've got a fantastic group of young men that put the work in every single day, and we've got a buy-in from top to bottom, and we want to keep pushing. We weren't happy with how the season was this year, because that's not our expectations. We're not lifting championships or going to the national tournament. That's where I want the program to be now. And it's taken a lot of work, but the guys deserve all the credit, because they've been able to help put the program on the map, and we want to continue to push the program to even further heights.
Yeah, so I guess part of that is, I know this past preseason you guys had Clemson scheduled, and they were Division 1. They were top of the Division 1 table, and then you just mentioned previously that Winthrop, you guys just played Winthrop and beat them pretty convincingly, and then are heading over to the University of South Carolina to play them, and these are games that you guys are scheduling Division 1 level, high level opponents. So how does that factor into your preparation?
Yeah, we want to play against the best. For us to be the best, we have to play against the best. And for the guys to recognize what it takes to be at that highest level, Clemson was a fantastic experience for our guys to play against the national champions of Division 1. Not many Division 2 programs get to say that they get to do that. But that's what we want to create. We want to create experiences so the guys remember that I always say to our guys, college soccer will be the best 4 years of your life, and we want to create those experiences, not just off the field, but on the field as well, to play against the best and hopefully be competing for championships. So that gives us the best preparation when we're playing against your Clemsons, your South Carolinas, your Division 1 programs, to be able to say, hey, we can compete at this level if you guys do everything and what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And obviously, when we talk about some of the best, I got the privilege to watch you guys this past fall in my first semester here at Coker and everything like that. And I think when I was watching everything, I think 1 week, because I was normally keeping up with the national rankings and everything like that, I think 1 week there was at least 6 South Atlantic Conference teams in the national ranking or receiving votes for that matter and everything like that. So in my opinion, this is probably one of the best conferences in Division 2, potentially in all of NCAA for soccer. What is it like having probably the best conference and going up against some of the best competition for conference play, for that matter?
Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful. But that's what we want. As coaches and as players, we want to be competing in the best level week in, week out, and that's what we can provide. The South Atlantic Conference, I believe this year, was the best conference in the country in Division 2. And it's definitely, in and around the last 4 or 5 years that I've been here, is top 2, top 3 conferences in the country. There's no easy game. Every coach in the country says every game's like a cup final, because there's such small margins. And that's what those small margins are. So they best prepare you once it gets to playoff time, national tournament time. You've already played against the best. And it gives us that best opportunity and that platform to continue to keep pushing on as well.
Yeah, so building off of that a little bit, I know that with soccer is probably one of the tough, or the sport that you really most have to have team cohesion. Like every single aspect from the first minute to the 90th minute, it's every single pass, every single shot, and like you really have to think ahead in terms of your movements and tactics and things like that. So how do you foster both on and off the field that team cohesion within your group?
It's massive. The team bond and team building piece is a massive factor of who we are. We want to do a lot of stuff on the field and off the field. We can't just expect to win championships if we're around each other 2 hours a day for practice. That's not going to work out. We have discussions as leadership groups. We do stuff off the field, team bonding, team building things to know that the guys have their back. So we know about each other, not just how a guy plays as a soccer player, but what their life is like, what their upbringing is like. We're a very diverse group from boys from all around the world, all across the US. And it makes for a good bond that the guys have. We try not to recruit a set amount of one nationality where we reach our 3 or 4 of one nationality, because then little cliques can start to happen, languages, cultures, upbringing. So we're not getting comfortable. We're forcing to rely on each other. But so we know when you look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, look behind you, that guy's got your back. And we know about each other, and we know who we are and what we want to do. And our goal is when the guys step foot on campus August 8th this fall, when we start preseason training, that we're already bought into who we are, because we know about each other. We've done the work in the off season. We've sold the vision and goals of the program for the new players that are brought in. So we're all bought in from day one. And I feel like that's so important. And it's been one of the keys for us being able to elevate this program is every single person's bought into every single aspect of the program.
And I think hitting the ground running is a very important thing for sure, because then there's no question as to, you see a lot of teams that have to start from scratch or maybe have a lot of graduating seniors or things like that. You're bringing in a bunch of new people, and then you have to really get them to buy into the program. So I think that having the ability to hit the ground running is just so important in any successful program for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's, like I said, when you play in our kind of conference, you don't have time to get your feet wet. You have no time to kind of figure things out. It's the season comes thick and fast, and like this past season we kicked off with Nova Southeastern and Barry University. We went down to Florida. Nova Southeastern constantly in the national tournament. Barry were third in the country at the time when we played them, and if we weren't ready for those first 2 games, it could have been a long weekend. We could have had fun at the beach maybe one day, but we wouldn't have been smiling on that plane home if we lost both those games. So you have to hit the ground running. This up and coming fall is the exact same. We've got those guys coming to our home this up and coming fall, so it's got to be the exact same thing again. Like going back to playing these Division 1 programs, doing these things off the field, that what is key to us and important to us as a program. All these things factor in so we can hit the ground running right away.
For sure. And so I guess we've talked a lot about the on the field things, and we touched a little bit about the team bonding off the field. So one of the other things that is super important here at Coker was the fact that the school won the largest amount of community service hours in all of Division II. So how important has that been for your team? And then also maybe what was some of the most memorable and fun experiences that the team has had in completing those service hours?
Yeah, no, our boys do a fantastic job of the community service. They are they embrace it, they love it. It was, when I first got here, it was a chore maybe to some of those guys, where now it's a fact, okay, we have an event, I need X amount of people who can do it. Like that, we get the boys in, they jump out, they jump off their seat to be able to do it. So when it comes to, we love working with kids when it comes to introducing soccer into their life, whether it's Halloween, Easter egg hunts, whatever it may be. We're about to go out and work with the Humane Society out on the campus on Davidson Lawn right now, and the guys embrace all of that. And it's very important for our boys to know, giving back to the community, how important that is, and to have an effect on them and see smiles on people's faces, and it's only going to help them in their future about giving back. And they can see the results from it. They can see the feedback that they get from it. It's been the Halloween stuff that we do. We always get asked back to do our little score a goal for a piece of candy, because the guys just go nuts. They go crazy for it. Sometimes they celebrate their goals more than they do our goals. And they're just a very special group of young men that they embrace, once again, all aspects of the program, and the community service piece is massive for us. We want to give back. We want to help the community of Hartsville, and we want to make sure that we have a positive impact on young people's lives.
Yeah, and I think that the give and take is also shown because something that a lot of the coaches have talked about is that they see the people that they have had those experiences with, and they see them at their games. You know, the team, you know, those same kids that you handed out that candy to, that they score the goals and stuff like that. Maybe that family was like, oh, we need to go see them play a soccer game this year. And then you see so many more people in the community not just buy into your program, but Cobra Athletics in general. And then it just fosters such a relationship between the community of Hartsville and Cobra Athletics. I think it's so special to see, for sure.
No, 100%. Hartsville's a special place. It's myself, my wife, my little 1-year-old daughter. We love it here. We love it here. So even it's a special place for my family. So making sure that my family is also the men's soccer program. So it's an extended family of who I am, and I want to make sure as a family, as someone that wants to lead these boys into going on to be good dads, good husbands in the future, that seeing the effect that they can have on people is going to help them grow so much as a human being, that to do those things and to have a special impact on a community like Hartsville is very important to us.
Yeah. Well, Coach, that's just about all we have. I know you've got somewhere to go, like you just said, so we want to get you going, but thanks for coming on the podcast, and we appreciate you.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely, Coach.
All right, looking into next week at Cobra Athletics, we have a full slate of game for you this week. Starting off with baseball. Baseball heads to UNC Pembroke for the second half of a home-and-home series on Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then this weekend at Tom J. New Field, Cobras will take on Tusculum with Game 1 at Friday at 6 p.m. and Games 2 and 3 on Saturday at 1 and 4. Now to softball.
Yeah, continuing on the diamond in Mars Hill, going to go ahead and travel into town on Wednesday. That game is going to go ahead. That'll be a 1 p.m. start, and then Game 2 shortly to follow after. Scheduled for 3:30, but again, could be earlier, could be sooner. And then Saturday, Cobras, again, get another home series, so it's nothing but home games for softball this week as UVA Wise comes into town. That first pitch is going to go ahead. Game 1 going to be at 12 p.m. for that one. So, again, 2 of the last 3 home series for softball coming up this weekend and for them, so going to be very interesting to see. And then back out to the courts with tennis.
Yeah, so tennis, 2 SAC matchups this week. They host Catawba in a makeup match that'll be over at Byerly Park on Thursday at 1 p.m. And then they head to Mars Hill on Saturday to take on the Lions at 1 o'clock. And then finishing it off with track and field this weekend, the Johnson C. Smith University Golden Bulls Collegiate Invitational is on Friday and Saturday.
And there you have it, another episode of the Cobra Corner. We hope you enjoyed the show. Can't wait to see you supporting Cobra Athletics in the stands or online. Remember, your passion and support really does make the difference for our team. So keep cheering, be loud, and let's go Cobras. We'll see you guys next week.